Arguably the fastest finisher in US domestic cycling, Justin Williams is using his success to forge a path towards greater diversity in the sport. A former member of the Trek Livestrong development team alongside the likes of Taylor Phinney, the 30-year-old LA native with Belizean roots has dominated the American criterium scene in recent years. His journey hasn't been without its struggles, though, as inCycle found out when it spent time with the trailblazer at the recent Harlem Skyscraper Classic in New York.
After Livestrong, it was I had learned a couple of hard lessons, and I had been on the U.S. national team, had spent some time in Europe, and it was just such a crazy culture shock for me coming from South Central LA. I had realized that it wasn't something that I necessarily would thrive in, or I didn't know if I wanted to commit my life to being that European type of guy and picking up my whole life, leaving my family and going to Europe. My whole life I had been taught that the only way you make it is in Europe. So I came home and I went to college and I was like, all right, I guess I gotta live this normal life. I guess my cycling career is over because I'm not gonna go, pro tour. And luckily I just had, some really good guidance and I had the motivation of my younger brother, Corey. I was done with the racing side of it, and he was like, I'm gonna do a year on this MRI team, just come ride with me. And yeah, I just didn't train with the power meter, I just would ride with them all the time, and that ended up being one of the best years I had. Between Livestrong and going through those middle years where I didn't know if I wanted to do it, I didn't know what success was for me in the sport if it wasn't Europe. Finding how I could be effective and how I could help other people without being on that level, that became more important to me. And that started with helping my younger brother and the fulfillment that came from watching him win races, watching him smile when the team got the job done. That basically just evolved into what we are now and where we're going.
Where Williams is going became a little clearer this year as he took the step of setting up his own team, Legion of Los Angeles.
Legion is a team that I put together to promote diversity in the sport, create this home where people can feel comfortable with being themselves. I felt like I had to do a lot of toning down of who I am as a person to fit in, and I felt like there was such a lack of diversity when I was coming up that I didn't feel like I could be myself. So I really wanted to create this platform where, people can come in, kids could come in, and the environment was going to be a very American environment. We're going to just do things that made sense for us. I would love to see more color in the sport. And you have the Colombians, you have a lot of the guys that are coming from other places, but I think that with black riders especially, and particularly just really American cyclists, I think there's a hard time fitting in just because the culture is so different. And hopefully in the future we see more people that are more comfortable with joining the sport. You never know what's going to happen if you make something accessible and acceptable. You never know what's going to happen with the people the talent that could potentially join the peloton. I have a lot of friends that I grew up with that were amazing talents on the bike. And once you get out of the junior ranks in America, there's there's this massive gap to pro level cycling. And we kind of want to just fill that. I don't ever want to be a pro tour team. And if it happens, then that's great, but it's not in my immediate goals. I want to be a team where kids can come to and learn how to ride in the field, learn how to read a race, learn how to get a bottle from a car. It's these basic skills that I think the Euros have a system of how that works and we just don't. And we want to create that bridge to what a pro level cyclist is. Crit racing is the heart of American racing. I think it's something that's been neglected for a really long time just because of Lance Armstrong and a lot of the guys wanting to like just idolizing European racing, and I get it. It's great. Like I love European racing. I watch it all the time. But I think for us in our culture, it just the 100-mile, 150-mile races, it just doesn't work here. But what we do have is like this really high intensity circuit racing that works so well for American racing. Anyone that I've ever taken to a crit, doesn't matter if they've never seen a bike race before, they're super pumped, super excited. They love every minute of it. And I think that's something that we need to utilize a lot more, just because it takes a lot more than legs to win a criterium. Got to be great at bike handling. You got to understand what's happening in the race. You got to be good at momentum control. There's so many little you got to pick the right tire pressure. There's more dimensions to it. And that's what I really, really love and appreciate about a criterium racing. On top of that, you get these amazing crowds that are just out screaming because they've never seen, 100 cyclists rolling around corners, like bumping each other and touching each other. And I think there's something that fits the intensity that is America really well, and crit racing is the way that I think our racing needs to go. I think that's where the money is, and I think that's where the future is. If you give kids something that they can look at, a person that they can like aspire to be or they admire, that's the first step in getting people into a sport. If no one looks like you when you go out to a bike race, or if you see a bike race on TV and no one looks like you, it's not something that I think you'll believe that you can do. And that's something that we also want to focus on. Us being this team that is promoting diversity is great, but us getting on the podium and standing on the top step from time to time is even better. And I think that's where it's really important for what we're doing, because if we can be this face that's winning races and showing younger kids from different demographics that this is possible, you can do it. All these things come with, with bike racing. I think that's like a really big step in the right direction for getting them to maybe consider bike racing as a viable option for the future.